Good evening, everyone. Please be seated for tonight's talk. Sit facing the teacher and sit comfortably so you can make eye contact. And in a moment, we will recite the Gata Unopening Sutra, which is found on page 8 if you have a literature book. And if you don't and want one, they're in the back on the table. Gata on opening the sutra. The Dharma incomparably profound and infinitely
So, the marching band from Toledo, the University of Toledo, will now proclaim the Dharma. I think a lot of people are having kenshos over there. They keep on like the cannons are going off. They're all excited and cheering. Oh. Sort of like our mind on steroids, the band and the cheering and so forth. So, I am still a little tired from last week. So, I'm going to give a very sleepy, hazy talk tonight. Interestingly, the koans sort of have a way of being a bit like tarot cards or something. They sort of show up and they're revealing something about the moment that someone is in. And this particular koan that we're going to be working on is about a guy who was really tired. So, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, our pug died. We found her this morning, Ella. And, Dizzy died during the pandemic. And we first got Dizzy because Isabella was so sick. When she was around 8, she got diagnosed with a really not good thing. And she couldn't go to school. She couldn't really get out of bed, actually. And she's an only child. So she needed a couple of friends. So we got Louis first. And then the breeder called us and said that his wife had just died, that she was in the hospital for an operation, and she got, I think it was like MRSA or some sort of infection there, and they didn't know what it was, and they sent her home, and it just ravaged her very quickly. So the breeder was completely bereft and asked us if he would come and buy some more pugs. So we went sort of out by Delta, actually. And we thought, well, we're just going to get one. But of course, it's kind of like the potato chips thing. And the guy was really like just freaking out because his wife had just died. He couldn't deal with anything, let alone taking care of all these pug puppies. So we got Ella and Dizzy. They were brother and sister from the same litter. And those 3 dogs really were nursemaids for Isabella for quite a while. She would be lying on the couch with them snuggled all around her. So this morning, I actually didn't even realize she was gone. It was so peaceful in the kitchen. And then Roshi got up and Dizzy was bouncing all around, but Ella was just quiet on the chair. And he said, "Oh." I said, no, it's really, everything's fine. And he looked, and yes, she'd actually died. So Shindo took Louis when he died and got him cremated. So she came today and she got Ella. So Ella's at the crematorium right now. And I put her on the prayer list, so. Okay. This is case 28. Ryotan's name echoed long. It's a bit long. Actually, the case is a bit long. But I think we'll be okay. Interestingly, this case is also about here, not here. One day, Tokusan kept asking Ryotan for instruction till midnight. Ryotan finally said, "The night is late. Why don't you go to bed?" Tokusan thanked him, made his bows, raised the door curtain, and left. Seeing how dark the night was, he turned back and said, "It's pitch black outside." Ryotan lit a lantern and handed it to Tokusan. Just as Tokusan reached for it, Ryotan blew it out. At that, Tokusan came to sudden realization and made a deep bow. Ryotan asked, "What have you realized?" Tokusan replied, "From now on, I will not doubt the words of the old master who is renowned everywhere under the sun." The following day, Ryotan ascended the rostrum and declared, "There is a man among you whose fangs are like trees of swords, and whose mouth is like a bowl of blood. Strike him, and he won't turn his head. Someday he will settle on the top of an isolated peak and establish my way there." Tokusan brought his sutra commentaries and notes to the front of the hall, held up a torch, and said, "Even if you exhausted abstruse doctrine, it is like placing a hair in vast space. Even if you have learned the vital points of all the truths in the world, it is like a drop of water thrown into a big ravine." He then burned all his commentaries and notes. After making his bows, he left. The verse, "Seeing the face is better than hearing the name. Hearing the name is better than seeing the face. Even though he saved his nose, alas, he lost his eyes." So perhaps just a little backstory for this. Tokusan was a scholar of the Diamond Sutra. They used to call him Diamond Lu or Diamond Shu or something like that. I mean, he was really, he was like renowned throughout China. And of course, back in those days, the North was very refined and very sutra scholar-based. In the South was less so. And I think the Zen masters tend to hang out in the South. You know, I like to say when people say, well, what's kind of the difference between all the different kinds of Buddhisms? I'm going to say, like, well, like the Tibetans are really kind of refined scholars with some crazy magic going on. And the Nam-myoho Renge folks are hanging out in living rooms. And the Zen people are like swashbuckling pirates. So Chokuzan was one of the like scholarly types. And at this point, Zen was kind of a sect that was somehow looked at with side eye, you know, like, what are you people doing there? Knowing all of the sutras and all of the shastras and Buddhist philosophy was the point. So he was running around with his Diamond Sutra lecturing all over the country, quite renowned. And one day he came to this tea hut, and he wanted to get like a scone and a cup of tea or something like that. And the tea lady asked him, so, you know, you see you've got like a big box there, a big backpack. What's going on there? What are you doing? He said, well, I'm a scholar of the Diamond Sutra. And I'm in town giving some lectures, and I'd like some tea, please, and a scone. And she said, oh, the Diamond Sutra, right. I think I remember hearing that in the Diamond Sutra it says, past mind can't be grasped, present mind can't be grasped, future mind can't be grasped. Is that right? Why, yes, it is. In fact, you could quote chapter and verse exactly what page it was on. She said, oh, all right, good. So if none of the minds can be grasped, with which mind will you drink this tea and eat this scone? And he was like, right, cat got his tongue kind of thing. Because he didn't really know. He was stumped. And he said, okay, is there like a Zen master around here? Because that sounds like a real Zen move you just made on me. And she said, sure enough, he's down the road a bit. His name is Ryotan. So Ryotan is the character whose name has long echoed through history and also through the night for Tokuzan. So we pick up the case. He decided to go to Ryotan's monastery and to study with him. And one day, Tokuzan kept asking Ryotan for instruction till nightfall. Well, what is it? How do I do it? Why isn't this working? I've got so much going on. I can't possibly do this practice. We all know how it goes, right? And Ryotan is getting tired, listening. But he's also sensing that Tokuzan is kind of at the end of his, like, excuse making. he's at the end of his tether. He can't figure it out. And he's really at the point where, like, he's exhausted his mind. He's exhausted his possibilities. This, of course, is a very fruitful place in Zen practice. So Ryotan says, "The night is late. Why don't you go to bed?" Tokusan thanked him, made his bows. So he would have been like in the Dokusan room and made his bows. He raised the door curtain and left. Seeing how dark the night was, he turned back and said, "It's pitch black outside." Kind of like it is right now, right? And he didn't want to walk in the dark. So Ryotan lights a candle for him. "Let me light the way for you." Okay? So, of course, you have to hear this not just as like a physical experience of like it's dark out and I'm lighting you a candle, but, Ryotan actually feeling his own kind of at the end of the brightness of his intellect, right? It's dark, I have no more. Right? And then Ryotan says, "No, I will light the way for you." Right? And this is such a beautiful expression of the intimacy between student and teacher, and just the exquisiteness, actually, of that relationship when it's really alive. And I wish for everybody that you would find and feel and know that exquisite aliveness and warm-heartedness and connection with the lineage. So Ryotan lights a lamp and hands it to Tokusan. And then just as Tokusan goes to reach for it, he blows it out. Now, what's happening? Darkness everywhere. Right? And there's something about that encounter with that darkness pervading everywhere that was the spark that awakened Tokusan. So it's really critical that we make friends with the darkness. We make friends with the not knowing. We actually make friends with the darkness that we call the demons in our heart and in our mind. Nothing is excluded in the Bodhisattva's heart. Nothing is outside of Buddha nature. All is redeemed. At that, Tokusan came to sudden realization and made a deep bow. And that bow is just communicating everything. we're way, way on the other side of like commentary on the Diamond Sutra or interpretation of the Diamond Sutra as some kind of expression of realization or Buddhist, of enlightenment for that matter. We are in the deep, deep belly of intimate, beyond intimate connection. This place of no obstruction, this place of boundlessness, this place of the one body of the Buddha that we all are. This one body that we're practicing. This one body that is dark to the dualistic mind, but radiant to the heart. This is what we're doing. It's quite lovely. It's very, you think of the dark as being very velvety and kind of smoothing over all the edges. And then Ryotan asked, so what have you realized? Even though he knew what he had realized already, he just wanted to check and see how Tokusan might express it in a different way. Tokusan replied, from now on, I will not doubt the words of an old master who was renowned everywhere under the sun. Fascinating, he says, under the sun, because he came to awakening in the dark. What about that? Interesting, right? Really interesting. The following day, Ryotan ascended the rostrum and declared, there is a man among you whose fangs are like trees of swords and whose mouth is like a bowl of blood. Strike him and he will not turn his head. Someday he will settle on top of an isolated peak and establish my way there. So this has got a little bit of testosterone in it, to say the least. The other day I was talking about, are you practicing Dharma or are you practicing drama? And your Dharma is supposed to kind of eclipse your drama, but I'm not sure about Ryotan here. I think he was going for the drama. Oh. Yeah. So many different ways of expression, right? The most important thing is that when we find our true expression, then when we hear other people's expression, though it may not be the way we would say it, or even the way we necessarily experience it through our culture, through our personality, through our particular body in this time, we recognize a friend. Tokusan brought his sutra commentaries and notes to the front of the hall and held up a torch. So, Ryotan comes on kind of all macho and heavy. So Tokusan responds in kind. And again, the torch, right? The torch was lit and then extinguished, and Tokusan had an awakening. Now he's relighting this torch. And this torch is, well, let's see what it's doing here, right? He held up a torch and said, even if you have exhausted abstruse doctrine, it is like placing a hair in vast space. So just kind of go there in your mind, a hair in vast space. Remember when I first heard this, I was at a session, and it was like it was probably like day 5, and it was just like so dead quiet. I mean, it was just like everything was completely still. And the teacher just sort of threw that quote out into the air of the temple, and it was like, whoa, you were really that hair in vast space. You could just feel it reverberating through eternity. Even if you have learned the vital points of all the truths in the world, so even if you've studied everything, and you can, I'm very impressed. Have you ever met these people that study the Bible and they can quote like chapter and verse? Yes, it's very impressive. So even if you've studied all the points of the Bible and can quote it chapter and verse, it's like a drop of water thrown into a big ravine. He then burned all his commentaries and notes. So this drop of water in the big ravine, right? The hair in vast space. He came to awakening through this direct experience of darkness, of vastness, of no obstruction, of boundlessness. And he was finally freed from the prison of these, black letters on the page, right? Keeping him keeping him a bit small, I guess. He had realized himself as vast space. Seeing the face is better than hearing the name. Hearing the name is better than seeing the face. Even though he saved his nose, alas, he lost his eyes. So this is like, these verses are sometimes like, oh my gosh, these are like riddles that you would have to like answer to like, if you meet a troll on the bridge or something, And if you don't get it right, so seeing the face is better than hearing the name. So seeing your face before your parents were born is better than actually talking about someday having that encounter. Just saying their name is not enough. Hearing the name is better than seeing the face. Hearing the name is the whole of it. How is it that hearing the name is the whole of it? Even though he saved his nose, so that would be like even though he came to some understanding, alas, he lost his eyes. Of course, now we're referencing the dark again, right? And also in Zen, blindness is sometimes, if you call somebody blind, it's like praising them. This was from Yamada. I thought this was interesting. In Zen, there are 5 kinds of blindnesses. The first one is ordinary blindness, so unenlightened muggles who know nothing about the truth. Bad blindness, persons attached to wrong philosophies, or this says actually religions. The third one is blindness before enlightenment. Although you have correct faith and you're studying and you're practicing and you're in community and you've got a teacher, but you still haven't kind of crossed into a Kensho experience. And then right blindness is the eye of enlightenment. And finally, true blindness. So true blindness. This, again, this is echoed in Bodhidharma's famous answer to the emperor when the emperor asked him, "Who is standing before me?" And Bodhidharma said, "I do not know." Right? So this is the eye in which enlightenment has utterly disappeared. This is the Buddha's eye. So, what about this darkness in your own life? Are you afraid of the dark? Are you afraid of your own darkness? Are you afraid to be a hair in vast space? Are you afraid when you don't have any edges, anything to grasp onto? What if you made friends with that? Right? Just that fear, that darkness, the grasping, the confusion, all of it is nothing other than the Buddha arising. You know, this, when we really can just say, okay, I surrender, right? It's such a relief. And the whole world reaches out and holds you. You're held. You were held the whole time while you were grasping and fearful and everything else of the dark. You were being held. May we all realize this. Maybe so. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them.
unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it.
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Thank you especially to our visitors. Are there any announcements? I feel like there are, but I don't know them. No announcements. Please restore the Zendo.
You know what's going on next year.
But I'm not sure we can be like tomorrow. Or this, I feel like there are things.
Sorry, I was thinking it after I mistakenly thought that when Matrix said that he had books to read over the winter, that he like had like an English thing going on. He's like, no, he's like, the chess books.
I